Welcome to the 1871 podcast. And on tonight's episode, we're bringing you our preview for Saturday's game against Burnley. And Johnny and I will complete our countdown of our all-time favourite Reading players. And then on tomorrow evening's episode, it's our 106th episode. So we'll be taking a look back on the 106 season for our 106th episode. And then on Sunday, we'll be doing a special episode marking the 40th anniversary of the proposed merger with Oxford United back in 1983. So that's all coming up on the 1871 podcast. And before we finish our countdown of our favourite Reading players, let's look ahead, Johnny, to Saturday's game against Burnley. And my first question to you is, what do you think Noel Hunt has been working on with the players this week?
I think confidence and belief. You know, the mental side of the game for them, I think, is clearly where we need to improve. Get the belief back amongst the squad. You know, play players in the right positions. Have a plan. Have a backup plan. Really get into their heads. You know, forget what's happened. Look forward, and you know, regardless of Burnley, top of the league and whatever, you're at home. It's a new start. It's 0-0 at kickoff. Nothing to lose, you know, and that's how you've got to look at it.
Yeah, and it's like you say, it's against Burnley in at the deep end, but it's a home game. The next game's a home game against Luton as well. So I think, you know, going in at the deep end like that, obviously he's been involved with the club previously. He's been promoted internally, if you like. But I think Burnley first up, you know, the champions elect really, at home. I think that's a good thing. We're kind of not, you know, expected to win. Be fantastic to get at least a point from that game, and like you said, you know, maybe stop them breaking the record, which might happen anyway. But it'd be nice to sort of put a dent in that. And I think just we'd like to see on Saturday just something different, something a bit more positive, really, wouldn't we? Almost regardless of the result, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. I think you know, so you want to see the team, you know, go for it. You know, attack and play on the front foot and start the game with some energy and get the crowd going, because there should be a good crowd there, I think, because they've got, you know, a lot of youngsters in. So it's a perfect opportunity to get the crowd on board. You know, hopefully fans won't be going, oh, you know, about what's happened. It's about what's going to happen on Saturday and what's going to happen in the next 5 games. And it's a chance to get behind Noel and the team and really give them that extra player, which I think, you know, over the years when Reading have, you know, had that in the crowd, that 13th man, 12th man, whatever you want to call it, that just gets the players going. And if we have that on Saturday from the kickoff, that will give those players a real massive boost. You know, and then football is a strange game. Just because Burnley are top, you know, we could have beaten them earlier on in the season. We could again, you know, and you know, they've got nothing to fear.
Yeah, and you know, they drew 0-0 with Blackpool, didn't they, last month? And I think you're right. I kind of would expect a more positive atmosphere in the crowd. I think it was a relief, you know, what happened with Paul Ince getting sacked, because there are still people who think he should have stayed till the end of the season, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Yeah. That's fine. But I think now we've kind of got that hope has been elevated, that we've got a chance now of staying up. And that game on Saturday against Burnley, it's a chance for some positivity. And let's see what happens with the result. But at least if we see something a bit more positive, hopefully the crowd will be more positive. Hopefully that will lift the players. And it just feels like, okay, we're starting now. We've got this mini league of 5 games to go. We've got a chance of staying up. So let's give it everything we've got. And let's start with some positivity on Saturday.
Yeah, let's no regrets.
Yeah, and let's, like you say, just look forward. So let's recap on the current standings at the bottom. So you've got Rotherham at the kind of top of the mini league, if you like, of the relegation threatened team. So Rotherham have got 45. points. They've got one more game, so they're on 40 games. They've got 6 left. And then you've got Huddersfield and QPR on 43, Cardiff on 42, Reading on 41. And then below Reading, Blackpool and Wigan have got 35 and 34 respectively. So it's 2 points between Huddersfield, QPR, Cardiff and Reading. So 5 games to go, 15 points to play for. QPR are having a terrible run. So there's two games coming up for everyone over the next few days. So this time next week, there'll only be 3 games to go. So let's have a look at the games coming up on Saturday and next week that affect the teams at the bottom, including Reading. So Saturday's game, this will be an interesting one. It's the early kickoff, 12:30 kickoff. Sheffield United at home to Cardiff. So obviously, we'll be cheering for a team in red, won't we? Sheffield United, that one. And then, of course, Reading against Burnley, QPR against Coventry, Swansea home to Huddersfield, Rotherham home to Luton, and Blackpool against Wigan, which is kind of now it's sort of neither here nor there, really, Blackpool and Wigan, is it?
You'd think not. And the other games, again, you can look at them and see that, they should win because they're at home. But the league doesn't work like that. So it's going to be one of those, I think, where, Saturday it'll be one thing. After Wednesday, it could be something else. Then, any team thinks, we've got to win the draw. Then, you could lose the game and you're back in it again because, there's going to be some results that nobody's going to predict.
Yeah.
Amongst those games, and that's what makes it exciting if you're a neutral.
Well, who would have predicted at the beginning of the season?
Not for us.
Who would have predicted at the start of the season, the beginning of the season, that QPR would be where they are now? I mean, they were flying at the start of the season, and now they're in serious danger of getting relegated, as are Reading, of course.
Yeah. Remember that they were. I think we were fighting against that game. We played against them, and it was first v second, wasn't it? Back in October, I think it was.
Yeah, I think whoever won that game would have gone top.
We were top for 2 minutes, and then we lost 2-1.
Something like that. Well, look, there's some big games coming up on Tuesday and Wednesday, featuring all the bottom teams in the Championship. So on Tuesday, Rotherham home to Burnley, Huddersfield away to Sunderland, Blackpool home to West Brom, and Wigan away to Stoke. And then on Wednesday, 3 big games, not just for Reading home to Luton, but also QPR home to Norwich and Cardiff away to Watford. So the next few days are really key for Reading and obviously the other teams as well, Johnny. And you have to say, looking at those fixtures, 2 tough away games for Cardiff. QPR have got 2 difficult games as well, and they're on a terrible run of form. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that we could be out of the relegation zone, this time next week, especially if Noel Hunt can give some confidence to the Reading players, I think.
Yeah, if in a dream world, if we could get 4 points from the next 2 games, would be, if we can get, obviously I'd love to get 6 points, but, you get a draw against Burnley on Saturday and everyone goes, that's a decent result. And then you've got a bit of momentum, a bit of confidence. And, every team that's around the playoffs or around the relegation zone, it's going to be a tough game. You're not going to get easy games. But you think then, okay, we've got, there's a bit of belief back in the team, hopefully. And then, that momentum, that's what you need at this stage of the season. If you could start, get that starting off the first game, confidence for the next one.
Yeah.
Forget the away record that we've had. This is 1-2 away games left now, but it's new 2 away games with a new approach, new team.
Yeah, and it's almost a mini league between 4 teams. So you've got 2 points separating Huddersfield, QPR, Cardiff, and Reading. Obviously, Huddersfield going well. That's not relegation form that they're on at the moment. Probably the other 3 teams, including Reading, are in a bit of a bad run of form. So, two games coming up over the next week. 2 points between those 4 teams. So let's have a look at the form, and obviously very contrasting form between Reading and Burnley, of course. So Reading have 3 points from their last 8 games. even though we said let's not look back. But anyway, so Reading 3 points from their last 8 games with 3 draws and 5 defeats, and contrast that with Burnley's 18 points in the last 8 games. So they've had 3 draws, but instead of 5 defeats, they've had 5 wins in the other 5 games. They've won their last 2 games. Excuse me. So Burnley have won the last 2 against Middlesbrough and Sheffield United. Although Blackpool did hold them to a 0-0 draw last month, and they drew at Millwall 1-1 as well. But Burnley haven't lost in the league since the 5-2 defeat at Sheffield United on November the 5th. They've only lost 2 games all season, although both of those were away from home. And since that defeat against Sheffield United in November, they've won 16 games and drawn 4, although they have drawn 4 of their last 10 games. And obviously the away form, that's where they've been dropping points. And they've actually, of the last 4 away games, they've drawn 2 of them. So that includes the 0-0 draw against Blackpool. So if Blackpool can get a 0-0 draw against Burnley, then Reading can get at least a point.
Yeah, why not?
It's doable. And there is a possibility that Burnley could clinch the title on Saturday if they beat Reading and Sheffield United don't beat Cardiff. And at the moment, in terms of the 106 record for Reading, it's still a Football League record. Obviously, Man United in the Premier League beat that particular record, but 106 is still the Football League record. So Burnley at the moment can get 108 points if they win their remaining 6 games. So a draw against Reading on Saturday would mean they can only equal Reading's 106 record. But a Reading win will mean that they can only get to 105 points, even if they won their last 5 games.
Perfect motivation.
Yeah. So I don't think that'd be the main motivation, but obviously it'd be nice if we do that. Yeah. So look, let's talk a little bit about Burnley. We obviously focus on Reading, but you know, looking at Burnley and their scorers, that they've got quite a few players that have got, you know, 5-6 goals, that sort of thing. Nathan Tella is obviously a danger man. He's got 19 goals, their top scorer. I would say Ashley Barnes, you know, he's probably in a way a little bit like Andy Carroll for us. He gets a few goals, but causes, you know, he's going to cause defence's problems, isn't he? And then you've got Goodmanson, got 2 against Sheffield United, albeit it was against 10 men after the keeper got sent off. And I think one of their danger men is Josh Brownhill, I would say. He's got 6 goals plus 10 assists from midfield. So probably, I mean, we need to look out for everyone really, and hopefully the concentration in defence is there. I mean, what do you think, apart from confidence, Johnny, and going into the game with a positive mindset and the fans getting behind the team, what do you think Reading might need to do tactically to stop Burnley and the sort of players that I've mentioned?
Burnley, you know, Burnley have got, you know, they've got creativity, they've got depth, you know, and a few games, you know, where they've changed it and brought players on, has changed the game, you know, because they've got that ability to do that, you know, with a good squad. I guess, you know, to me, it's like not what the opposition can do. It's like, let's look at what we can do. And I think that's probably what Ince's mindset seems to have been like the last, you know, let's set up to hopefully draw the game and nullify the opposition, rather than go, well, actually, let's look at the credit. Let's look at what we've got as a team. You know, we've got Zhao. If you can get Zhao working well, he's a quality player on the day. Obviously, Carroll's got his strengths as a different type of forward. But you've got, you know, we haven't got the depth. You know, you're missing guys like Junior Hoyle, who's, you know, is a kind of a creative player. You know, the limits that we have, he's been very successful for us. But you got Nesta Guinness Walker, who you know, he going forward, he takes on people, he causes problems, which we don't. You know, the amount of games I've watched, we don't put the defenders on the back foot. You know, we don't go at players. We don't scare them. You know, it's lumping the ball in. It's very easy to defend as a defender when the ball's in front of you. when you've got guys being turned. Watch other teams in the Championship, and they're going at no defender likes that, and we've got to find a way of you've got Aziz, you've got Gillis Walker, you've got two guys that are quick that can run. We haven't tried it. I'm not saying that I've got Noel Hunt's tactic book, but let's do different than what anyone's expecting us to do. We've got an opportunity with young players on the bench that might start, for instance. It's a chance to wipe the slate clean and to like we say, a 5-game season. So believe, mentally wise, that you're good players. I feel that the squad's been just run down by Ince's negativity over the last however long, and they're not going out there believing that they can win the game. So that's obviously a psychological thing from Hunt and the backroom staff to change that. It's a short time, but these guys are good players. As we've sort of talked about with Warnock, at Huddersfield, he had the same squad that the previous manager had that was struggling. He's turned them into a winning. So it's not just, we need different players. We need that. You can do that with the right mindset and belief and building up the players and saying, yes, you're a good player. You can do this. It's simple.
Yeah, and I think if you look at someone like Andy Carroll, what he's achieved in his career, he's had a fantastic career, and yes, he's coming to the end of his career now, you would think, but he's got an opportunity here. It's the shackles are off, so he's got a chance if he starts, obviously, or comes on a sub. And I'm going to ask you about that in a second, Johnny. But somebody like Andy Carroll, he's still got those attributes that he had. Obviously, he's not, I don't know, not as quick or whatever, but he can still sort of pop up and find you a goal. Find the right position. You don't have to have the legs to get in the right position and use a bit of guile to find some space. But you're right, it's got to come from wide, really, rather than just hoof the ball up front to him. But I think this is a really big opportunity on Saturday for Andy Carroll to kind of not prove himself, but show again what he can do. So my question to you is, do you expect him to start, Andy Carroll?
If they start him, they have to play differently. We can't keep, I'm not sure him and Jow were under what Ince has done. Hunt might work a different way. Under how it's done with Ince, Jow and Carroll aren't a good combination up front.
Well, they haven't been. You look at them, and they're two different players.
Yeah.
And you look at them, and you think, because Jow was top scorer, wasn't he? A few seasons, was it two or three seasons ago, with 22 goals. Yeah, he's a good player. Andy Carroll's had a fantastic career. Those two could work really well together. And I'm rubbish at accents, so I'm not going to do the Irish accent. But I can imagine Noel Hunt going in to training this week and just taking players aside one by one and just saying to Andy Carroll in his Irish accent, which I can't do, you're a good player. Go out, enjoy yourself, express yourself, show it. And yes, there's got to be the strategy to win the game and the tactics and all that sort of thing. But let's have some enjoyment back, because the reason every professional footballer starts is because they've got a love of football. So go out and show that on Saturday. So I think he'll be having a word with Andy Carroll and saying, look, you're our main man here. With you, if you have a good game, we got a chance of winning this game. I think it'll be all positive from Noel Hunt, and that's really what we want, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just finding a way of making it work, and if it isn't working, change it. And that's again another criticism of Ince. It was very predictable, and the substitutions were very late. The younger players weren't given a chance till the Preston game. Actually put Kelvin on early, and he scored, which is great for his confidence. But now
who's that, Johnny?
No, I'm not going to fall for it again. But yeah, use guys like Carroll his experience of football to help the team. You know, his knowledge of the game. He knows he's played against Premier League players like Burnley, that have come down. Get into his head, get to Giles' head. Hopefully Mate's going to be fit, because he's another one that can cause problems. Aziz could go. And obviously defensively wise, we need to be. That's another big problem that we've had, is that the amount of set pieces and everything else that we concede. He needs to get that defensive setup working better and organised, and decide whatever the setup of the team. I don't see that playing this 5 at the back, 3 at the back. It just sets out negativity. If Hunt plays it and he plays it a different way and gets it working, we're limited with what we got central midfield wise with Hendrick and Forner and Loom. We haven't got a John Swift or a Darren Caskey, that can ping a pass 30 yards, but it's what it is. So find a way of making it work. And I'm sure Noel Hunt, he'd be chomping at the bit to prove himself for his own ability, for his own role as the manager. And that enthusiasm that we've seen on the podcast will rub off on the players, because he'll believe in them and he'll get them wanting to go out there. The pride of wearing the shirt for Reading, the pride of possibly destroying the chances of Burnley getting the record. He's got a lot of things that can motivate those players to do different. And if we still don't win, but we go, Jesus, we had to go at them today. God, you go, yeah, fair play, and then go, okay, we've got Luton next. Let's give them a go.
Yeah. Just a thought while I was listening to you talk there, Johnny. I don't think Noel Hunt's signed on as a player, but that would be interesting. He could probably do a job, couldn't he?
I'm sure he'd delight. He'd be chomping a bit to get up, wouldn't he? But no, I think he's passionate, and his enthusiasm will rub off on that team. And that's what we need.
He's done well, hasn't he? He's done well with the under-23s.
Yeah, he has, and he, as he said, I think when he spoke to us, he's believed there's 3 or 4 players there that were first team players.
Might see 1 or 2 new players in the squad.
Possibly. He knows that group of players very well, and if he thinks they're good enough to perform, good luck to him. And if they're young players, they've got a chance on the big stage. It's great. Why not?
And the other thing is, if one of those new players comes in and the Reading fans haven't seen him, then certainly the Burnley scouting team or whatever, they haven't seen him either.
Yeah.
And so they won't know how to handle him because no one's seen him.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to ask you, Scott Dan started the last game, didn't he, on Monday?
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't know what the formation is going to be at this stage, but given Burnley's capabilities going forward and all the goals they've scored, and we mentioned the front players and Josh Brownhill, assists and goals from midfield. Would you be concerned if Scott Dan started again?
I think it's who's available again. Holmes went off injured, I think, on the Preston game. Maybe Andy Carroll might play centre back. There he goes. Match him up with. He could do a job because he's a great defender. For set pieces for us. But it is really down to who's available. And again, Nelson Abbey, I think, is a young player that's done well for the under 23s, 21s, whatever.
Can I stop you there, Johnny? So what you're saying is that it'd be Andy Carroll coming in for Scott Dan at the back, and then maybe Noel Hunt signing on as a player this week and starting up front.
Yeah, so you said something different, and I think that's quite different. I don't think we'll put a bet on it happening, but
and we're gonna sign Leroy Lisa in time to make a return as well.
Yeah.
Joking aside, joking aside. Well, who knows? It's not the way.
I think
Steve Walsh used to play at the back, didn't he? He was as good at the back as he was up front for Leicester. But
look, the thing with Dan, you've got leadership, and he's been
experienced.
And you're going to need that at this side, and then you're going to have the guys around him that he's got to leave. And Lumley, who I think despite where we are, has had a very decent season as keeper.
Yeah, probably the match on Monday. Lumley, do you think?
Yeah, and yes, he's had a couple of mistakes, a couple of games, but I think he's been, in a team that struggled, he's been consistently, performing, and again, we all need the players to stand up and show the pride for the club. And that's all we ask as fans. You just want to see some pride, and you want to see some battle, and you want to see somebody, revving up the fans even, getting the players, getting up to the fans and come on, let's get into them. And that will get the fans going, and that's what we need.
It's almost like the atmosphere you think could be like that, optimistic atmosphere you get for the first game of the season. It's possibly be a little bit like that, isn't it?
Yeah, like we're only 2 points off where we could be. We're not, if we were 6 points behind, you're going, okay, every game is going to be a must-win game, but Saturday's not a must-win. It's we need to be still in with a chance. Even going, if we're with a chance of 2 points with the last game of the season, we need to win to stay up. I'll take that at this 5 game to go stage. That's what happens, and that's where it's going to be an up and down ride. But you think, right, let's just go for it. We've got nothing to lose because we've already thought we were going to.
Yeah, look, to get out of the relegation zone, and Cardiff have got that game in hand, which I think is the game against Rotherham.
Well, yeah.
But obviously, games in hand don't count as much at the bottom because the teams at the bottom are there because they're not winning. Do you know what I mean? So yes, it is a factor, but chances are Cardiff might lose that game in hand. Don't know. But look, Reading are only 1 point behind Cardiff. So if they go above Cardiff over the next 2 games, they'll be out of the relegation zone. Only 2 points behind QPR and Huddersfield. And QPR and Cardiff, 2 difficult games coming up. So Cardiff away to Sheffield United on Saturday. That's the early kickoff. Away to Watford on Wednesday. And QPR, they're playing Coventry and Norwich.
Yeah.
So the way QPR are going, I mean, they'd be doing quite well to get a point out of those 2 games.
But then they could go and win both of them. That's how bizarre. It's just so difficult to pick. And I think that's what Noel Hunt's got to do is focus on what we do as a team.
Yeah, exactly.
We can only control our games.
Completely agree with you. And look, let's finish that section, our preview to the Burnley game, just by saying, really wish Noel and all of the team, the players, the best of luck, and hopefully the crowd will bring some positive energy as well. So let's hope for something positive, some fight. Let's see something positive from the Reading players on Saturday, and that's kind of at this stage. Obviously, we need points wherever we can get them, but as long as we see some fight and some positivity, then we've got something to work with for the remaining 4 games, haven't we?
Absolutely.
All right, so that's our look ahead to the Burnley game on Saturday, and now it's time to complete our countdown of our 25 favourite Reading players, and we're going to start with a recap of who is on our list from 25 down to 6, and then Johnny and I will reveal who our top 5 favourite Reading players are. And just to stress, this is our favourite, so it's not what we think is the greatest Reading 11, because mine would certainly look different. It's just our favourite players over the years, and we're going to mention a few that didn't quite make it. But let's have a recap. So this is part of our top 100 series. So we started this on our 100th episode. So we're doing a Reading FC top 100. Which will also include things like our favourite seasons, our favourite goals, etc. So I'll make a start with this, Johnny. Here are the players who I have included in my top 25 favourite Reading players so far. So at number 25, I had Gary Westwood, 24, Colin Bailey, 23, Andy Rogers, 22, Paul Canaville, 21, Keith McPherson, 20, Darius Dovcek, 19, Steve Wood, 18, Jamie Curitan, 17, Stuart Bevan, 16, Kevin Doyle, 15, Keith Curl, 14, Steve Richardson, 13, Terry Hurlock, 12, Stuart Lovell, 11, Shaka Hislop, number 10 was Dean Horrocks, 9, Paul Holsgrove, number 8, Jerry Williams. My number 7, Phil Parkinson. And 6 was Kevin Bremner. So, Johnny, can you give us a recap of your 25-6 of your favourite Reading players?
Yeah, so 25 is Frank Kirby, 24 Adam Federici, 23 Ivor Ingemarson, 22 Gary Peters, 21 Jimmy Quinn, 20 AD Williams, 19 Kerry Dixon, 18 Phil Parkinson, 17 Jan Kermigan, 16 Anthony Rouget, 15 Adam Lafondra, 14 Martin Hicks, 13 Joby McAnuff, 12 Darius Dovcek, 11 Dean Horrocks, 10 Jamie Kieran, 9 Graham Murty, 8 Trevor Senior, 7 Shane Long, and number 6 Michael Jukes.
So that's only actually 4 players that have made it onto both lists so far. I think that's about to change. And actually,
Maybe.
we had a few more in the later stages of that. So Darius Dovcek, Dean Horrocks, Jamie Curitan, they were my 12, 11, and 10. They were also on your list. And actually, I had Dean Horrocks at 11, and you had him at I had him at number 10, and you had him at number 11. So almost the same. So that's our 25-6 of our favourite Reading players in our countdown. And before we reveal our top 5 Reading players, just wanted to mention a few of the players who just missed out on my top 25 favourite Reading players. So you had the likes of Jason Roberts. I mean, when I first saw him play for Reading, I was just like, wow, we've actually got a player like this. He was just great to watch. Graham Murty, you've mentioned him already. He didn't quite make my 25. Steve Francis, Reading goalkeeper. And I don't know if you remember the game, Johnny, where Steve Francis, it was at Elm Park and he got concussed. I don't know what happened, whether it was a corner or something, and I think he got a whack on the head. And then play was up the other end. Can't remember who they're playing. And Steve Francis started diving around on his own in his goal. Do you remember?
No, I don't remember that. That's
Yeah.
probably what.
So he didn't quite make it. I mean, I put Shaka Hislop in there.
Yeah.
He took over, didn't he? He was next along after Steve Francis. And funnily enough, the following season, Reading went to Huddersfield, didn't they, when Steve Francis was playing, and they won 3-0. So also just missing out for me, Steve Moran. He was very kind. We had, I don't know if you ever remember, Johnny, there was a little nightclub just outside Henley called Benson's. So I used to play for a Sunday football team, and we had our kind of end of season do at Benson's in Henley, where they have the Rewind Festival now. And Stephen Moran came and presented the Player of the Year award, so that was really nice of him.
There you go.
That's not a reason. Good player. And we've had players like Trevor Morley. The list goes on and on.
Oh, geez,
AD Williams didn't make it onto my 25, and John Talarco as well. But the thing is, you've got to leave somebody out to put one of those in. So, you know, a lot of my favourite players go back to the record-breaking Roars in the 80s. And look, to be honest, I could have had anyone from the 106 team, anyone from Brian McDermott's title team, anyone from the Mark McGee team, you know, other players from the record-breaking Royals, anyone from the Simod Cup winning team, or anyone from that team that got promoted at Brentford thanks to the Jamie Curitan goal. Jamie Curitan, my top 25. And I think it's probably worth mentioning that I didn't really become a proper fan until 1985. So that's why the likes of Kerry Dixon, Steve Death, and Robin Friday are not on my list, because I didn't, you know, I did go to watch some Reading games before that, but I didn't really become a proper Reading fan until 85. So the record-breaking Roars was my first season as a proper Reading fan. And actually, I was living in Dubai during the 106 season and Reading's first season in the Premier League. So I only got to see a handful of those games live when I came back to England. But luckily, we did get all the Premier League games on TV in Dubai. So I did get to see most of Reading's games in the first season in the Premier League. And I did get to see a few live games when I was back in England. So I think I saw 3 games. West Ham, West Brom, and Wigan, I think it might have been. And I've got a feeling Reading won all 3 games. So they beat West Ham 6-0. I think that was on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The Premier League. I think so. Yeah. So that's a few of the players that missed out on my list. Johnny, what about you? Were there any players who you wanted to put in, but you
Oh,
didn't?
geez. So give me good, like you say, you could put how many? Some of the ones that for me, I think there's a bit of an obsession with goalkeepers is part of my thing. So Xhaka is up and Marcus Hanneman, two of my favourite keepers as well.
Didn't make it in.
Huh?
They didn't make
No,
it.
no,
Wow, that
no, they're
surprises me.
no, no. I know, but it's different things for different reasons, and you go.
Yeah,
It's so hard to narrow it down to, but,
yeah,
and then Neil Webb, class
yeah,
player. Again, he was one I think because he went on to do stuff after he left Reading, and it put kind of Reading in the spotlight. And then kind of two others that for different Jimmy Kebe and Bobby Convey. I just love watching wingers. I think like Steve Coppell was as a player. Proper wingers that just go at players and create opportunities. And God, we'd love one of them on Saturday. That
yeah,
kind of player. And the other one for his energy, which he was underrated, even though he had Sidwell alongside him, James Harper. I
yeah,
just thought his he really was the energy in that. Like Parky was, at his age, he just never stopped running, and it was
yeah. I could have put any of those players in.
yeah.
And and people might think, why have I got Colin Bailey in? Why have I got Gary Westwood in? But as I say, that the record-breaking Royals season, it was just a fantastic time to be a Reading fan. My first season as a Reading fan. So, I've got very fond memories of that team and those players. So the likes of, Andy Rogers, Kevin Bremner, Dean Horrocks, Trevor Senior, Michael Gilks, the list goes on. So look, here we go then. Our top 5 Reading players. So we're going to take it in turns again. So I'll do my 5, you do your number 5, Johnny, and so on. So at number 5 on my list, and we've had him as a guest on the podcast, it's Simon Osborne.
I knew he'd get there somewhere.
So Simon Osborne joined Reading in the summer of '94, and he was a key part of the success, I would say, of that 94-95 team, even though, ended in heartbreak. Finished second in what is now the Championship, would have gone up automatically any other season. He only played for Reading for one season, made 39 appearances, got a few goals from midfield. But he was a brilliant midfielder, absolute class, very clever player, brilliant to watch. And I don't think we actually had another player quite like him until Steve Sidwell. I can't think of anyone else who was quite like Simon Osborne, because he was, absolute class in midfield. He wasn't like Phil Parkinson, that kind of midfield hard man sort of thing. He was like real quality in the midfield for Reading. And only that one season, but he made such a big impression on me as a Reading fan. So Simon Osborne is my number 5. Johnny, how about you? Who's your number 5?
I've gone for another similar kind of player. One of my favourites, and to be honest, I think he kept Reading up from going down to League Two. Darren Caskey, season he scored 20 odd goals.
I guess he did.
I guess you have Simon Osborne. Caskey was going to be mine. I just love watching him play. His vision, was unreal at times. Probably in a better team, we've done a lot more. But I think when we were really struggling that season, I think when Pardew came in, we were on the way out. When Martin Allen came in with him, and Cassie went to score 20 odd goals that season, which then was the kind of next season we got the playoffs. Next season we got promoted. If we hadn't stayed up that season, where would we be now? Do you know that? It's a small kind of part of a history that I think sometimes gets a bit forgotten.
Yeah, and he's another player who could have easily been in that top 25. Martin Butler, another one.
Yeah.
The list goes on, really. I mean, we could have.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line? Is it a top 50? Is it a top 100? It would have taken a bit more kind of time, but top 25, and mention a few that missed out. Yeah, I agree with you. Jason Roberts is another one. It's like, well, okay, well, who am I going to leave out?
Yeah, yeah.
Jason Roberts, he didn't make it into my 25, but he could have been in the top 10. It's just one of those,
Yeah.
you know,
It's just personal choice, isn't it? Like everyone has a
yeah,
different reasons and why you like watching a player.
yeah,
I just
yeah,
love Kaski's squeaky voice. The
yeah.
gets the ball. But his free kicks and set pieces were second to none. Some of the free kicks he scored for us.
Imagine if Darren Caskey and Steve Richardson had been playing in the same team.
Yeah.
It would have been like there'd been helium balloons in the dressing room.
Yeah, no, it was, it was a pleasure to watch, in a team that wasn't great.
Yeah,
It's, yeah, especially as early
yeah.
years at the Man
There's
State.
more. I think there's probably a lot more players that are left out than actually got into my top
Oh,
20.
geez, you can stop. You can save 100 players and you'd be going, I'll still leave someone out for 100.
The good thing is we are doing our top 5 favourite Reading seasons, so you get an opportunity then to mention.
Yeah, we'll cover everyone else that we've not put in
Yeah,
here somewhere or other.
give them a mention. So that's your number 5.
Yeah.
Moving on to my number 4 now. Was on your list already, Martin Hicks. So, and I'm a bit, I admit I'm a bit biased towards the 80s Reading team, record-breaking Royals, Simon Cup final, all that, and then the mid-90s team as well. So those players feature very heavily in my top 25. And Martin Hicks is my number 4, Reading's all-time top appearance maker with 603 appearances, I think it was. Joined Reading in 1978, played for Reading for 13 seasons across 3 decades, 78 to 91, I think it was. He was part of the Reading side that went 1,103 minutes without conceding a goal in 1979, as Reading went on to win the Division 4 title. And that's still a Football League record. And it included 11 games without conceding for Reading, and they went almost 5 months without conceding a goal because it included the summer when they weren't playing. And he was the last Reading captain to lift a trophy in a cup competition for Reading in 1988, as Reading beat Luton to win the Simod Cup at Wembley. Player of the season in 1989-90. Not the quickest player, but without doubt a club legend. And he was always going to be in my kind of at the top end of my favourite list of Reading players, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolute leader.
Yeah. So Martin Hicks is my number 4. How about you, Johnny?
We've had him on the podcast, and Kevin Doyle. I think, in the era of football, for a lad to come over from Ireland, nobody's ever heard of, to come in, the highlights, and just take to the game, take to the league like that as he did, was unreal. It just, sometimes players take a while to adjust to a level of football. He's come from the League of Ireland to play in the Championship, but he just straight in and he's one of those just natural footballers that you just enjoyed watching. And again, because nobody played against him before, over in the UK, it was like a breath of fresh air, and he just brought something to that team. And in the Premier League as well, it was probably his only doubt. He probably wasn't selfish enough as a striker, I think.
Yeah, towards the end. Again, we mentioned it about who was it? Dean Horrocks. I sort of described him as fitting somewhere in between a number 9 and number 10. And Kevin Doyle was a bit like that, wasn't he? He was sort of, he was a striker, but obviously Reading had that front 3. Although it tended to be 2 from 3 because one was out injured.
Yeah.
Whoever it was who'd been injured came back in, and then another one of them got injured. So they went on rotation, and Reading were quite lucky in that respect. But I think Steve Coppell said that he kind of anticipated Kevin Doyle being, not necessarily always first choice, but because of the way that things went in that season, and one of the other strikers being injured, When he was available, invariably he started, and yeah, fantastic player. He's on my list a bit further down.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's in terms of favourite players, he will be on a lot of favourite player lists for Reading fans. That's for sure. So look, that's we've counted down from 25 to 4. So now we come to our top 3 favourite Reading players of all time. This is going to be interesting. So I'm going to start, and I think from hearing your list so far, Johnny, and also the players that missed out, I'll be very, very, very surprised if my number 3 is not in your top 3 as well. And I think the player in question might have a word with you about it. It is, of course, Dylan Kerr is my number 3.
Do you know what? He's my number 3 as well.
Well, there you go.
There we go.
There you go. So
only because I like living.
He would, yeah, he would kind of expect both of us to say he's our number 1. But look, number 3 for both of us. So I'll say my bit about Dylan, and then you can. And this could take a while, but I think judging Dylan as a player and watching him as a player, and that entertainment factor and what he brought to that team in the mid-90s, yeah, absolutely brilliant player. And we're not. Yes, of course we like Dylan, and he's a co-host on the podcast, and he's got a great personality, all of that stuff. And you know, and we love him as a person as well as a player. But just as a player, he came in, and it's like you've gone in from a hot room outside, and you just get a whoosh of fresh air hits you. He was like that. He had such an impact, obviously on the pitch and off the pitch. But an attacking left back. He wasn't the greatest defender actually, but so exciting to watch. Always wanted to get forward. You know, him and Michael Gilks on that left, and he was like quite often wanting to get beyond Michael Gilks. And you know, player of the season in his first season in 93-94 during Reading's title-winning season. A huge personality, and I'm sure that had a positive impact on the team. Made more than 100 appearances, scored 5 goals, including that brilliant goal he did. I think it was against Stoke. He did the 1-2 with Stuart Lovell, and then he curled it into the far corner. You can find that one on YouTube. I think it might have been in a game against Stoke, and then he ran to the crowd and he pulled his shirt over his head. Just like if we had a top 25 list of Reading characters, he would probably be number 1 for me, I think. So I'm sure he's going to be pleased. He's going to be disappointed that he was only number 3. But what do you want to say about Dylan, and why is he your number 3, Johnny?
Aside from the football part, you know, he's been very supportive around a lot of stuff, mental health stuff, done over the last few years, and he's always put his hand up and always helped out. And a unique love of 80s music that I've got in common with him. You know, okay. And it's not every day you get to spend time speaking to someone, you know, one of your heroes. We're very lucky to and very honoured to. But it you know, on the pitch, watch any left back always looks different to the rest of the team. Just they have it, like, you know, Ian Hart was the same. It's just like they have a wand and they just glide up the pitch. You know, it's you know, but such a creative position when you've got good players. But Dylan, you know, he played with a smile on his face, and he's, like you say, his enthusiasm. You know, some of the stuff you heard off the pitch that went on at the time. But you know, character, like you say, it's characters that make teams. You know, we've spoken to a lot of different characters, and Dylan's character is very different to the rest. But that you know, you can see it as a manager with him. You know, he has that same enthusiasm, that same self-belief. It's infectious and it rubs off on others. And you can't not believe in what he's doing because, well, he'd give you a slap or something probably, but he wouldn't. But he has that way, you know, and that's, you know, you're kind of drawn to him because his energy, you know, and his energy lifts the room, you know, and he's always got time for everyone. And he's always got time to talk, you know, and as a player, absolute class in that season, and the heartbreak that he had of not being in the playoff final, as he said, must have been horrific. And I never, you know, that must be one of the toughest things. But he went on from Reading to do very well as well. So, and
Yeah,
just
and like you say, infectious personality, and whether it's a player or now as a head coach, he's got some sort of. It's almost like he's got some magic dust that he sprinkles because, back in the playing days, he was just a brilliant player to watch. So entertaining, so exciting, the energy, and those runs from left back, and he got forward so much.
yeah,
And you think of sort of old fashioned fullbacks
yeah,
as never scoring, but he wanted to score every game, really. Let's be fair. Um, and you look at, I mean, he's succeeded as a player, and you look at what he's done as a head coach since 2017. He's won 7 trophies, 2 league titles. I think he won like a treble or a quadruple or something in Kenya. Won back-to-back titles in Kenya. Seven trophies since 2017 that he's won. He's also got a really good reputation, similar to what Neil Warnock's done and what he's doing with Huddersfield. So he's taken over 4 teams in the South African Premier Division relegation zone, kept them all up. So he's come in with Marumo Gallants in January, bottom of the table, having won 2 games all season. They win their next 4 games. They qualify for the quarterfinals of Africa's equivalent of the Europa League, as South Africa's sole representatives, because in that competition, the CAFCON Cup, they include cup winners, and that team won the cup the previous season, so that's why they're in that. And Marumo Gallants, bottom of the table in January, takes over, win the next 4 games, and now they're off the bottom of the table. And then if they win the next game, because we're recording it before it happens, so even though this is out on Thursday, they played last night. If they won that game, they'll be out of the relegation zone, not just off the bottom of the table. So I genuinely think, not just because we know him, not just because he's a co-host, but if you look at his track record, I mean, people like Mark Warburton, Carl Robinson getting a mention as the next permanent manager. Why isn't Dylan Kerr even in consideration for that? Look at what he's achieved in 3 different countries. And okay, you could say it's only Vietnam and Kenya and South Africa, but doesn't that in a way make it more difficult
different rules, different ways over there. There's a lot of different circumstances to being in the English football, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
a lot of people would like to see him come in, and a lot of people want Murty as the next manager, and obviously let's focus on the next 5 games. But
he deserves a chart somewhere.
Deserves a chart. Yeah,
in the English pyramid, or whatever you want to call it, whether it's League One, League Two. I don't think he'd actually care. I think he just wants the challenge to prove himself.
Even if it's National League, even if it's Slough Town in National League South or whatever, he would do it. And he can't do any more to prove himself in Africa and Asia. He's done it already. I said, 7 trophies he's won since 2017. Kept 4 sides up. Got a chance of keeping a 5th side that, all 4 of the sides he's taken over in the relegation zone, they've all stayed up.
He is our version of Neil Warnock, isn't he?
He's our version of Neil Warnock, yeah, but much nicer personality, yeah. So look, we said we might focus a bit on Dylan Kerr, and deservedly, he's in our top 3. So that's the first one where we've got the same position. Dean Horrocks was pretty close. 11 and 10, wasn't it? 11 for you, 10 for me. And Dylan Kerr, number 3 on my list, number 3 on Johnny's list. So coming to our top 2 now. My number 2 has already been on your list, Johnny. It's Trevor Senior, one of my absolute all-time Reading heroes. I mean, you imagine my first kind of season as a fully fledged Reading fan, watching him score all those goals. Wasn't he kind of did for Reading what Erling Haaland
Yeah.
does for Man City now. Wasn't the greatest player. I think a lot of those goals were from about 2 yards out, but he got a lot of them. So he joined Reading in 1983, went on to make 362 appearances and scored 190 goals. So that's not up to Erling Haaland's standards, but 190 in 362 appearances is pretty phenomenal, nevertheless. He was player of the season in 1988, 1989, and he was top scorer for Reading in 7 seasons. And what happened? He was top scorer, I think, 4 seasons in a row, and then he went away, played for Watford, played for Middlesbrough. I think he helped Middlesbrough get promotion, didn't he? He scored in the playoffs, something like that. And then he came back to Reading, and he was top scorer the next 3 seasons. He got 41 goals in the 83-84 season. The only player that's come close since then is Jimmy Quinn, who got 40 in that team that got promoted in the 90s, just before missing out on going up to the Premier League. So 41 goals in 83-84. He helped Reading to 2 promotions, including 31 goals in the 85-86 Division 3 title season. I think the best way to sum up Trevor Senior is goal machine.
Yeah, definitely.
That's it. So we've already spoken about Trevor Senior twice because he's on your list as well. So who is your number 2, Johnny?
This one is again, for a kid growing up, the story from my family is Robin Friday. My dad used to go out drinking with that team, and as a young kid, the stories I heard and my brothers went to watch. I was too young to watch at the time, but what it made me a Reading fan. And wherever I lived, different parts of England when I was a kid, that was my identity. Robin Friday, and just a different time of football again. And I think I said before, like my dad came home with one of his socks after a night out. And it meant a lot to me. I'm sure people that actually saw him play regularly, but it just, to me, it was part of my childhood to be. We've got this.
Yeah,
and we've got what, like this long haired, and a player that as well who was a class player in a different era. The stories, the personality still lives on, however many years later, and I think for a little club like Reading that we were in those days, as such, it was we've got Robin Friday, and and I think people go, oh, Robin Friday. I was like, the story, the player is one thing on the pitch, the off the pitch, and and the stories my brothers told me and my dad, and you go, wow, how did he play football?
So it's the 2 things together. People remember him for both because he was brilliant on the pitch. He was brilliant off the pitch, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It's like a sort of rock star lifestyle off the pitch, you could say.
Yeah, So that's me. That's my number 2.
And he's not on my list. So Kerry Dixon's not on my list for the same reason, just because I may have seen them play in Reading games, because I did go and watch Reading. My dad was in the press box covering games, so I occasionally went to games when I wasn't really. I think I mentioned at the start of Series 2, there's an article and my dad was being interviewed, and he said, "Oh, Mark seems a bit more interested in fishing than football," and at the time that was accurate. And then I went along and I just got hooked. That record-breaking start to the season, 13 games, and that was me done. Like I'm a Reading fan forever after that. And obviously you have your favourite seasons, and we'll come.
Yeah.
But you talked about identity, and it reminded me actually of a story. I went on a boys' holiday to Tenerife. I won't tell you all the stories. I'll keep it in context with what we're doing here. And I got chatting to a girl, as you do, and I think the conversation went along the lines of, "Oh, what do you do?" I said, "Oh, I'm a footballer," and she said, "Oh, what's your name?" And I said, "Martin Hicks." I don't know why I did that, but
Did it work?
Uh, no, because we were talking. I think we were talking balconies or something. But no, I don't know why I said that. But no, I think probably if I was going to ever play for Reading, which would have never happened, I was, I'm very tall. So the player that I most like out of that Reading team was probably Martin Hicks. But I did
The things you learn on this podcast.
That's it. When I was playing Sunday football, I was my great granddad was a striker. Still got the record for most goals in a season for Southall, actually.
There you go.
Played for them 1910, 1911, something like that. Still got the record. Most goals in a season, got 50 odd goals, I think it was. So I fancied myself as a bit of a striker. So I played Sunday league football, but I think my highest kind of level I got to was about division. I played for Robert Darvel I played one game in Division 3 of the Reading Sunday League, I think it was, and that's about as high as I got. Yeah, so anyway, that was my Martin Hicks story. So look, we've done our number 3, which is Dylan Kerr for both of us. Number 2, for me, Trevor Senior, and for you, Robin Friday. I think I know who your number 1 is. You might have guessed who my number 1 is. So I'll keep in sequence. My number 1 is on your list. You can probably work it out, Johnny. It's Michael Gilks, and it's the absolute obvious choice for me. Just kind of typified really everything that made me a Reading fan.
Yeah.
He joined Reading in 1984, just before I got into following Reading. He made 486 appearances. He scored 52 goals. And he was a brilliant player to watch, brilliant winger, lightning quick, so exciting to watch. And when he made those runs down the wing, you could just hear the crowd at Elm Park, that roar. Yeah. And that was part of the excitement with it. And I think, with that in mind, one of the best memories, certainly for me and probably for a lot of Reading fans, who have been Reading fans since the 80s or before then, is probably watching Michael Gilks bombing down the wing in front of the South Bank at Elm Park. And there was something about those midweek games under floodlights as well. And he had a song, didn't he? Run, 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 Gilksy. So, an absolute hero, my all-time favourite Reading player. And I think it's the same for a lot of other Reading fans as well who go back that far. So my all-time favourite Reading player is Michael Gilks. And I've worked out who yours is, Johnny, so it won't come as a surprise.
Oh, it's going to be interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So tell us your number 1.
Well, we had his daughter on the show, Steve Death.
Yeah, that's who I thought it was.
Yeah, you did. Okay, fair play to you. Yeah, the reason that's what he made me want to be a goalkeeper. Because in those days, goalies didn't have to be 6'6", and he certainly wasn't.
What was it, 5'7" or something, wasn't he?
Very short. But like when you see him play, like as a kid growing up, just didn't care. He just got stuck in, put his body on the line, and showed you how to be brave as a keeper. And then obviously the record that he had, how many minutes without a goal, to play for as long as he did. He didn't play at the highest level, but any goalkeeper that plays any level is completely mad anyway. So to play in the condition, the pitches in those days are different. Strikers could get away with a lot more, and he was brave.
He didn't used to wear gloves, did he?
He didn't for a long time. I don't know if he did towards the end. He certainly didn't. It was just wipe the hands out on the shirt and get on with it. I was saying we spoke to his daughter in the first series, didn't we? And the memories that she had about her dad. Yeah. And again, that kind of, the longevity of a player to play for Reading that long, and he was again, a keeper that didn't make huge amounts of mistakes. He was a leader. I think he was kind of one of the quieter from
Yeah,
the conversation. Was that he wasn't allowed, but he did what he did and led by being a goalie.
yeah,
That's
that record still stands, doesn't it, as a football league record?
yeah, yeah,
1,103 minutes.
yeah.
Um, the title winning season in 1979, still a football
Mm,
league record.
yeah,
And I think, if I'd have been a Reading fan going back further, um, you know, Robin Friday, Steve Death, I'm sure would have been at the top
yeah,
of my list, but I didn't include them because I didn't, I may well have seen them playing in games, but as I say, I didn't really become a Reading fan until
yeah,
the mid '80s. So that's why they're not in my list. Same as Kerry Dixon. Mark White was another one. I think he just was finishing
yeah.
in for Reading.
And
Um,
it is about era, isn't it? Like, if you have a lot of young people listening that are 20 years old, you're going, who are
yeah,
these people that we're talking
Colin
about?
Bailey. Yeah. But Steve Richardson, I mean, he's one of my all-time favourite Reading players. He won Player of the Season twice. He was sort of like a forerunner to Dylan, really, in that
Yeah,
left back role. He's much more defensive than Dylan, but he was quick, and he was always going to be on my list, no question. Jerry Williams as well. That just remember that he got the first goal of the record-breaking
yeah,
Royals
yeah.
season, the header, the 1-0 first game
And
of
it's like you say, it's like when your time as a fan begins or
yeah.
whatever. It depends
And then it
what's important to
becomes
you.
so the difficulty for me is I then wanted to get players from the mid-90s team that
Yeah,
Dylan was in.
yeah,
And so when you've got all those players that you included going back to the 80s, and then you've also got some from the 90s, you got 25, there's not
yeah,
and then I'm thinking about, you mentioned Gary Peters as well. And Jason Roberts. But then if I put Jason Roberts in, who do I take out? Because this is our favourite players.
yeah,
It's personal to us.
yeah,
And, so for me personally, Colin Bailey, Gary Westwood, Andy Rogers, three of my favourite
yeah,
Reading players. So I've got to leave one of those out to get Jason Roberts in. And I,
yeah.
I think it's also to do with what those players mean to you
Yeah,
personally.
exactly. That's it. It's not about, like, say, the favourite
It's
player
connected
to
with
watch.
your memories. So
Yeah,
one of my my it's going to be no surprise that record breaking Royal season is in my top 5 seasons. And that's a really happy memory, really happy time for me as a Reading fan. But look, so let's we did our before we did our top fives, we did our recap of the countdown from 26 to 25 to 6. So I'll read out my top 5 from 5 to 1, and then Johnny, if you do the same.
yeah,
So number 5 for me on my list of favourite Reading players is Simon Osborne. Number 4, Martin Hicks, who I once pretended to be. Number 3, Dylan Kerr, my lord. Number 2, Trevor Senior. And number 1, Michael Gilks. So that was my top 5. Johnny, just
yeah,
a reminder of your top 5.
yeah. So it's Darren Cassidy, Super Cask, number 5. Kevin Doyle, number 4. Same number 3, Dylan Kerr.
Yeah,
Number 2, Robin Friday, and my favourite player would have been Steve Death.
yeah. I thought you would have had Steve Sidwell on your list, I must admit. But like I said, you could have
He was one.
Ibrahim Asonko, Shorey.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, like I think it's players that I enjoyed watching all of them, but like there's sometimes you watch players that another one that be totally probably not named Brynjar Gunnarsson. I
Yeah,
love watching him play for Reading because he just did what he did. He played in various positions, kind of as a utility player, but every time he did, he put in the effort, but was an
yeah,
unsung hero. You got a lot of players like that people probably forget throughout the years that may not have
yeah,
played 200 games for them, but they were part of a team, or that just made things tick. Mick Goodin, you could say the same about him.
yeah.
guys that were the engine of a team. Parky was that. We could go on forever about different players, but I think it's that's the beauty of it. Like it's memories. It's looking back and for different
Yeah.
times. We're not looking at the best time for Reading. A lot of these players, didn't win Premier Leagues, and but they were part of our growing up and part of our
Well,
life, wasn't it?
Keith Curle is one for me, and I think it was a lot to do with his pace as a central defender. So it's
Yeah.
like you talk about, Darius Dovcek, Keith Curle, Shaka Hislop, and they came in and they sort of elevated that particular position. And Jason Roberts is another one, made a big impact on me, even though he didn't get into my 25. And it's the impression they had on you, and Keith Curle, yes, won the Simon Cup, but Reading got relegated that season. It wasn't wasn't a great season. The Simon Cup was obviously went to all the games, and there was some great games at Elm Park on the way. I think we beat Coventry in the semi-final, didn't we? Anyway, we're going to talk about that, but yeah, for you as well, Darren Caskey. That wasn't a great season for Reading, but a great player within that team. And and there's loads of other. You think about all the players that we haven't even mentioned, Pavel Pogrebniak, and neither of us even mentioned Glenn Little, did we? I mean,
no, again, but like it's what you say your favourite position. Like mine was obviously goalkeeper.
So that's why I was surprised.
Like,
because Shaka Hislop wasn't on your 25, Marcus Hanneman wasn't on your 25, and
But again, again, like we said, it's not just about the playing part. For me, it's about the bit personal thing as well. Personal stuff for me that brings we could say your best 25 or your personal 25 or the best 20. It's a kind of stuff that it makes it's not always just because he scored 200 goals, or not just because he won the league.
And the other thing is, it's what it connects to in terms of your memories as well. So Dylan talks about Utopia. I used to go to Utopia all the time, never on a Tuesday night. So I never kind of went when the Reading players were there, but I used to go there a lot. I used to go to all of those nightclubs that Dylan mentioned. So I was watching that fantastic team with Dylan and Shaka Hislop and Darius Dovcek and Michael Gilks and Jimmy Quinn, Stuart Lovell, all of those guys. And then I was also, that time in my life, I was, going out. We used to go out on a Friday night into Reading. We used to go to Chicago's every Friday night. We go to Utopia on a Saturday night, maybe. It's just part of your, watching Reading was a part of one of the fond memories going back to happy times in your life, and Reading was part of that. So it's sort of those players that you remember kind of connect you back to those times in your life, a bit like Dylan talks about, when he was always on the dance floor and stuff like that. And I remember that was a bit like me. I remember like when I catch up, I've got a friend who I used to go to school with, and we say, oh, do you remember when we went to this nightclub? And there was one in Maidenhead that we used to go to as well a lot, and and a lot of those places don't even exist. Washington Heights and Sloppy Joe's. Sloppy Joe's is a building site now by the station. I saw it last week. The little nightclub where you come out of Reading Station and all you could see, it was like the size of what looked like a large letterbox, and that was like the front door, and then you went down some stairs and it was underground. And I think I did a bit of DJing down there as well. So this is all connected to not just the football, but happy times in your life. Anyway, I kind of elaborated on that point.
And I lived in Reading until I was sort of 5, 7, 6, 7 years of age, and I moved around a lot because of family life, but I always had that connection. Still have that connection now, and those things never change. And you look back and through some tough times and different times, and I remember playing as a kid. To do at school, I had the Commodore 64, and I was playing Football Manager with the '86 team. Trevor Senior was, it was.
just looking at the top three. So Dylan Kerr at number 3 at left back, and then imagine if you had Trevor Senior up front, Steve Death in goal, Robin Friday playing alongside Trevor Senior, Michael Gilks
Not
down
a bad
the
five-a-side team, is it?
not bad. You get a few goals from that team, wouldn't you? Can you imagine?
And a good night out.
Can you imagine Robin Friday and Dylan Kerr on a night out?
I feel sorry for Dylan, I have to say, for the first time.
There you go. So the top 3, Dylan Kerr was number 3 for both of us. Trevor Senior number 2 for me. Michael Gilks was my number 1, and Johnny, you had Robin Friday and Steve Death as your top 2, didn't you?
Yeah. Happy times.
So enjoyed that, Johnny. Thanks for that.
That's a good time going back in memory lane.
That's it. Yeah. So that's kind of what the podcast is all about, really. And sometimes we've had quite a lot of those players on the podcast, haven't we? Kevin Bremner, Martin Hicks.
Yeah, some good memories. Lucky to hear them talk, really are.
Amy Sheraton, Adam Lafondra, the list goes on, Shaka Hislop. When I invite Shaka Hislop back on, I'll tell him that he wasn't in your
Thanks for that.
top 25.
Thanks.
It's a good job we had Marcus Hanneman on already, wasn't it, really?
Yeah.
So look, that's it for our top 25 Reading players. And over the next week or so, we'll be continuing our Reading FC Top 100 series by revealing our 10 favourite games, our 5 favourite seasons, 5 managers, and 5 influential people in Reading's history. So looking forward to all of that. And a reminder that on tomorrow evening's episode, it's our 106th episode, and we'll be looking back on the 106 season. And then on Sunday, we'll be doing a special episode to mark the 40th anniversary of the proposed merger with Oxford United. And that is available from 10 a.m. on Sunday.